Hey guys, welcome back, or maybe just welcome. If this is your first time drifting into one of these late-night history rambles, go ahead and dim the lights, maybe wrap yourself in a blanket, and let your brain float into neutral. Tonight, we're going to talk about cats. Yes, cats. The tiny house lions that now dominate TikTok videos and knock over water glasses for sport. But back in the Middle Ages, people weren't exactly posting memes about them. In fact, cats got a pretty bad PR campaign. To medieval Europeans, cats weren't cuddly companions. They were, well, allegedly agents of the devil. Because of course they were. Now, to be clear, humans have always had complicated relationships with animals. Dogs usually got the better end of the deal. Loyal, useful for hunting, good at barking when strangers approached. Cats, not so much. They didn't really follow orders. They stared at you like you owed them money, and they had that unsettling knack for showing up silently in the dark. To a medieval peasant already convinced the world was full of demons, ghosts, and hellfire, that was enough to put cats on the suspect list. But the cat's biggest PR disaster came courtesy of Christianity's growth in Europe. Early on, cats had some pretty solid reputations. In ancient Egypt, they were sacred, practically living deities with eyeliner. Even in Rome, cats were tolerated as pest control. But medieval Christian writers weren't feeling that vibe. They needed a good mascot for heresy, witchcraft, and general evil mischief. Enter the cat. Small, mysterious, nocturnal, and apparently way too smug. Perfect for the devil's personal brand. By the 13th century, the idea that cats were demonic had crept firmly into sermons and popular imagination. The Catholic Church, never shy about finding symbolic enemies, decided cats made excellent metaphors for lust and sin, especially black cats, which, thanks to their sleek, shadowy look, practically screamed satanic sidekick to people who were already terrified of the dark. Imagine being a poor black cat in a medieval village. You're just trying to chase a mouse, and suddenly everyone thinks you're attending secret witch Sabbaths in the woods. Rough life. One infamous moment came in 1233, when Pope Gregory IX issued a papal decree called the Vox in Rama. It described black cats as being worshipped in satanic rituals. Supposedly, heretics would kiss these cats on the butt as part of their ceremonies. Yes, really. Someone in the 13th century actually sat down, thought about it, and declared, "You know what these devil worshippers do? They smooch cats on the backside." That mental image spread across Europe like wildfire because medieval people loved a good scandal, especially one involving blasphemy and animals. Of course, once the Pope labels you as the devil's in turn, your days as a beloved house pet are over. Cats became targets of suspicion, and sometimes worse. People tossed them out of towns, killed them, or just avoided them altogether, which, by the way, turned out to be a terrible idea during the Black Death. By eliminating cats, people let rat populations explode, which, spoiler alert, wasn't great when the rats were carrying fleas with bubonic plague. But hey, medieval logic wasn't exactly known for long-term problem solving. Let's float over to the everyday superstitions that kept this cat paranoia alive. If a cat crossed your path, bad luck. If a cat sat near a sick person's bed, obviously it was stealing their soul. If your neighbor had one too many cats, congratulations, they were probably a witch. Cats' natural behaviors, like staring at nothing in particular, or twitching their tails like little demons, were basically proof of dark alliances. Because clearly, only Satan would invent something as confusing as a cat loafing on a windowsill, blinking slowly like it knows something you don't. And then there was the problem of cats being closely associated with women. In particular, women who lived alone or outside the usual structures of society. A widow with a couple of cats? Suspicious. A midwife with a black cat? Which confirmed. Cats, with their independence and refusal to play fetch, mirrored the anxieties people had about women who weren't under strict male control. Which, if you ask me, says more about medieval misogyny than it does about cats. By the late Middle Ages, cats were fully absorbed into the European imagination as familiars of witches. A familiar was basically a supernatural sidekick, like a demonic pet sent to help witches with their evil chores. So when witch trials really got going in the 15th and 16th centuries, cats were dragged along for the ride. Some poor women on trial were accused of transforming into cats, or having cats as their secret accomplices. Because when your legal system is already hunting imaginary broomstick riders, why not throw in some shape-shifting felines for extra drama? Of course, not everyone hated cats. Farmers still kept them around because, let's face it, someone had to deal with the mice. Sailors liked them too, since cats were natural pest control on ships. And there were always a few pockets of Europe where cats managed to dodge the worst of their satanic reputation. But overall, cats never really shook the association with witchcraft until much later, especially after the Enlightenment started dialing down the paranoia. So the next time your cat knocks something off the table at 3 a.m., remember, once upon a time, people thought that was the devil himself, reminding you that chaos is never far away. Or maybe just that you forgot to feed them. Either way, cats have always been keeping humans on edge. So where were we? Yes, cats minding their own business and humans turning them into PR mascots for witchcraft. Let's keep floating through that mess. By the 15th century, the witch panic was reaching its cozy, paranoid peak. People were seeing witches everywhere, literally. If your neighbor's bread failed to rise, or your cow refused to give milk, the obvious explanation was not bad yeast or poor pasture, but witchcraft. And if you saw a cat hanging around the supposed witch's cottage, well, there was your proof. Because clearly that tabby wasn't chasing mice. No, it was an infernal spy reporting back to Satan's HR department. Trial records from across Europe show just how deeply cats were tied into witchcraft lore. Some women were accused of feeding their cats drops of blood, as if the animals were vampiric co-workers instead of just pets. Others were said to send their cats out at night to attack crops, poison butter, or, my personal favorite, sit on people's chests while they slept, causing nightmares. Which, honestly, if you've ever had a cat, you know they absolutely do this. It's less witchcraft and more warm spot equals mine. The irony is, medieval people weren't totally wrong about cats being mysterious. Cats are nocturnal, sneaky, and occasionally prone to staring at a wall like they've spotted a ghost. But the leap from weird animal to satanic minion is, let's just say, very on brand for a society that also thought comets were fiery omens of doom. Things really escalated with the publication of the Malleus Maleficarum in 1487. This charming little handbook for witch hunters, because yes, they had literal how-to guides, explained how witches supposedly kept animals as demonic partners. Cats got starring roles, especially black ones. It wasn't just that witches liked cats. No, cats were believed to be vessels for demons, like little furry USB sticks where Satan could download his evil powers. Very convenient. And when witch trials picked up in the 16th and 17th centuries, cats suffered right alongside their owners. In some regions, if a woman was executed for witchcraft, her cat was killed too, just in case it decided to avenge her later. Because the last thing you wanted, apparently, was a grieving demonic house pet roaming free. But here's I actually find a little bit funny, in a very dark historical way. For all their paranoia about cats being evil, Europeans still couldn't quite get rid of them. Why? Because mice and rats weren't going to exterminate themselves. Farmers needed cats to protect grain stores. Sailors needed cats to keep their ships free of rodents. Even monasteries, yes, the same church institutions condemning cats in sermons, quietly kept a few around. So you ended up with this weird contradiction. Publicly, cats were seen as dangerous, satanic creatures, but privately, people were still giving them a saucer of milk behind the barn. Hypocrisy, thy name is medieval pest control. Now, about black cats specifically, their reputation became so bad that, centuries later, we still carry the superstition. The whole black cat crossing your path equals bad luck thing is a direct descendant of those medieval beliefs. Ironically, in some cultures, like in Japan or parts of Britain, black cats were actually considered good luck. But Europe doubled down on the doom and gloom version, because apparently nothing says romance like blaming a cat for your misfortunes. And speaking of romance or lack thereof, there's another layer here. Cats often got tangled up in misogyny. Women who were single, widowed, or just a little too independent were already viewed with suspicion. Add a few cats, and suddenly you had the perfect witch stereotype. The lonely old woman with her black cat, cackling in the forest. It's the same trope that Hollywood still uses today. though we've softened it into quirky cat lady jokes instead of witch burnings. Progress, I suppose. By the Enlightenment in the 18th century, the worst of the witch hunts were finally winding down. People were starting to use things like, reason. Cats slowly began to rebuild their reputation. They were still mysterious, but mystery was becoming fashionable rather than frightening. Intellectuals liked the idea of a sleek, independent pet that didn't slobber all over you. And by the Victorian era, cats were fully rehabilitated into the domestic sphere. Black cats even got a weird rebrand as lucky symbols for sailors and stage performers. So, after centuries of being slandered as demonic agents, cats somehow landed back on their feet. Which, let's be honest, is the most cat-like move possible. They outlasted the superstition, ignored the haters, and went right back to curling up on human laps like nothing happened. And now, of course, they've achieved cultural dominance. From ancient idols to medieval scapegoats to modern-day internet royalty. The devil's agent? Please, cats are far too busy plotting how to open the fridge. So the next time you see your cat staring at an empty corner of the room at midnight, you can decide. Is it just feline weirdness? Or a 1,000-year-old legacy of superstition, still echoing from the Middle Ages? Either way, the cat isn't going to explain. That's part of the deal.